Hello again. Welcome to my second show of the evening. I'm just gonna animate. Somebody finds it interesting, cool. I'm an animator, so I think it's interesting. But without further ado, let's transition over and see what we see. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up some motion capture that I went and dug up from years past. These are death animations. There's a lot of them here. So I'm going to open that up. There we got some motion capture. There we go. Shot and dead, shot and dead. So I'm probably going to stream here for whatever, for a little bit, see how it goes, see if it generates some interest. Put that on loop. So now I'm going to bring in my character. This is a great place to merge, or a great reason to merge. So I'm going to merge. Let's go and grab that character we were working on, this EDF character. I'm going to append everything. Don't need animation. Don't need that take. I think I'll keep the elements. Merge. And the first thing I'd like to point out is in this animation is this mocap is huge. Look how much bigger this is. That's because this guy happens to be a character from Duke Nukem Forever, and the scale on that game is like tiny, very tiny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get him to read this motion capture and show you what you need to do to make something kind of cool and fun. By the way, if you want resources, you can jump down and check out some resource links that I put down below. And yeah, get yourself some mocap and a character and start animating. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I am going to scale this character down to be closer to this guy's size, because I actually prefer to scale motion capture rather than the other way around. I don't think you should scale your characters up, in my opinion. So things kind of fell on top of each other here when I did this. There's the motion capture. Let me pull this guy down here. I'm going to scale this guy down, be closer to that guy's size. There we go. And he's up in the air because during these hits, he actually gets hit and falls on a mat. We didn't want to hurt our actor, so you'll see that here. So now I'm going to go to my character, who's the soldier, and I'm going to set him to character. It's automatically going to pop him in place where he gets killed. Now this is the time for me to go through and just start playing with all the settings. Normally I like having a ROM or a range of motion. The range of motion helps me calibrate my character to the mocap data. But in this case, we're just going to see if I can get close to this. There's going to be some retargeting settings I need to turn on over here. So character solving, first thing I'm going to do is turn on realistic shoulder solving. Retargeting, I'm going to match source. That means he's going to go and do everything exactly. Don't know what my offsets are just yet. I think I need to scale my mocap up a little bit. It's right here. There we go. Let's get that scaled up. There we go. Now he's following it a little bit better. This is Vicon data that we pulled this mocap from, and they have a really good skeleton. Probably some of the best I've seen in the industry when it comes to coming out of a package. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the feet because I want his feet to definitely go exactly where. I'm going to turn on some pull. Head and hands, I'm going to turn up. Rotation. Chest. Let's turn that up. Mid-spine. A little bit. See how those elbows are. Hands, maybe a little bit. There we go. Hey, how's it going? Glad you're able to join us. Probably mispronounce your name. Amontillado. Amontillado. There we go. Did I get that right? Amontillado on Twitch. Amontillado. Ah, thank you. Thank you for the help. So what I'm going to do here is you're coming in right at the very beginning. I've got motion capture. I got a character. I'm going to show how I'm going to like edit this down, and this is what we do in the games to sell hits. Essentially, whenever you play a video game, you shoot a guy. I'll explain how we shot it, why we shot it the way we shot it, and see how it goes. So I've got like a bunch of these deaths here. I'm trying to think of what would be good. Like maybe head front. This is a fun one. He gets shot in the head, falls over backwards. Now look at that flipping. No, okay. Well, there's a reason where there's flipping. Because this is raw mocap. Gimbal killer hasn't been applied yet. So if I go to my F curves, and where is it? Here it is, rotation. You can see there's gimbal in these curves, how they're popping up and down. So that's an easy fix. You just have to go to your filters and apply a gimbal killer to it. You can see it, it's done it. Hit accept. So now when he plays this animation, he just gets shot and falls over dead. As shot and as intended. Boom. I don't know if I like that one. I mean, it's a good one. It's good. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if that's the one I want to demonstrate animation on. I think there's probably some other ones on here. Oh, I know. Maybe he has taken a lot of abuse. Maybe these are light. Maybe a hard or medium impact to the head. Let me see. Medium chest, head from the front. Let's try that. Again, gimbal killer. So I'll just go ahead and run that gimbal killer again on it. There we go. Okay, so yeah, flip back. And he falls and goes down. So when we're doing a game, we have to film from all these different directions because you never know when a character's gonna where he's gonna get shot from. He flips again. Gimbal killer. There we go. Let me try heavy. Heavy head front. Okay, this is a good one to show because of how we shot it. And gimbal killer. Preview, accept. All right. Boom. And flip. Bam. So obviously we don't want to hurt our actors, right? We don't want to break their necks. So whenever we shoot the mocap, we had them break it into two parts. We had the initial hit of the head, boom, and then we have let him recover, and then we let the actor steady himself and then do the hit cell where he like jumps and flips. like he, I don't know, got hit with a 50 cal sniper rifle or something. I don't know. And boom, and he crashes onto a mat. Yeah, it's interesting because you can actually see the sponginess of the mat as he's walking around on it. So these are things that we have to take out of the motion whenever we're getting ready to edit motion capture. And whenever I sit down to do an animation, I usually like sit and I think about it for a while, and I'm just like, what's the plan of attack? I think it's preparation is very important. So I'm going to go with this animation for now. And when I'm happy with the animation, right now he's a live retarget. So in other words, he's reading this motion capture live. Nothing's been baked to the character. But in order to animate on him, I'll have to bake him down. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to say baked skeleton. And he's got a camera in his head. I forgot about that. Let's see what this looks like from his perspective. Oh, the camera's sideways. And it's locked. Let me unlock that. Let's see, unlock. There we go. Erg. There we go. Boom, and then he's going to flip. Phew, crash. That's nauseating. Yeah, we wouldn't want to use that for a first-person animation by any stretch of the imagination. All right, so, gosh. I did the original edits on these so many years ago. I'm trying to remember how I did this. I'm going to grab my tablet. I have a Wacom tablet that I actually animate with. I've gotten so used to a tablet, I almost never animate with a mouse anymore. So yeah, that feels better. That feels better. So, all right, so he's been plotted down to skeleton. Plot to his control rig. So now he's back on his control rig, so I'll be able to start editing. Windows. Oh, I forgot about this. Windows thinks my computer is a tablet, not a computer. I guess I'm back to the mouse. So I apologize if I fumble around a little bit. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is select my mocap stuff. And I'm going to put that in a group. And I'm just going to hide the group so if I need to go to X-ray mode, I don't see it. Then I think I'm going to take this, I'm going to put him down on the floor to kind of start giving him some of that tactile floor contact. Oh, let me unpin him, full body, drop him down. There we go. I'm going to go and create an animation layer and set a key. An animation layer is just an offset. So now he's on the floor. You can see his feet are still slippy, slidey. That's okay. And he crashes down. Boom. I think the bounce is okay. It's not too bouncy, but I can edit that out later. First thing I want to do, so I want to kind of like get this set up to be one big hit. What I want him to do is I want him to get boom shot and go right into this backflip and take out all that anticipation. So things that you learn when you animate, you learn anticipation is extremely important because without anticipation, it doesn't look like you jump, which is what this guy's doing. But there's not a lot of anticipation when you're just, you're getting the rug pulled out from underneath you, right? So to speak. All right, so when you animate in Motionbuilder, you want to animate in passes. This is my first pass. I'm just dropped him down. I'm going to go ahead and plot skeleton, plot control rig. And I'm going to go into story. I'm just going to see how this works in story. Insert character animation track. This is just me experimenting. I like to experiment. Select my character, insert current take. So one of the things I want to do is I want to take out some of that anticipation at the beginning of him wanting to get shot. Just a few frames here. So probably right about there. So I'm going to crop that down to there. And let's put that at 0. And I think I'm going to go to right about there, and I'm going to cut it again. This is kind of like editing and video package. Come back, I'm going to find the spot where I want to pick up. Maybe right there. Great thing about this is all non-destructive. As long as I don't bake everything down, if I don't like what I'm doing here, I can always delete this track and start over. Let's put him right over here. So there's going to be a pop now. So he's going to get hit, and he's going to fly. He's going to jump back. But I want that second animation to line up with the first animation. So there's some tools in here that we can use. I got to think of where I want him to line up with. I'm thinking his feet. So maybe his left toe, left foot, left toe. Well, anyways, I'll do his foot. So I'm going to select his foot. Select here. I'm going to go match. And to previous take, I'm going to match it to that one. At the start of selected clip. Yes, I think I want all that. It's got his ankle effector selected, so that's going to push him forward. So you're going to see he's actually going to line up a little bit better now. Not great, but a little bit better. Start overlapping these a little bit so they blend a little bit better. Not great, but it's getting there. You can kind of see the direction I'm going in. I think I need to make this one shorter. Push this up more. There we go. It's starting to feel a little bit better. There you go. He died. You can see I've taken an animation that was 152 frames at 30 frames a second, and it's now whatever this is, what, 37 frames. So I can come in here and right click and say, where is it? Frame start to end. So now it's kind of cropped my animation down to that number of frames. So there you go. He's kind of got shot and hit, and he's flipping around and he's dying. If anybody ever has any questions, feel free to like shoot them out there. I'll answer them. It's just a flesh wound. Tis a flesh wound. But yeah, you can see like real quick, just because we shot it well, he's able to go right into this animation. He actually slides forward. Look at his feet. His feet are sliding forward. Here's a trick. So if I turn on the little eye thing here, select this one, you can kind of see where, go to X-ray mode and hide his control rig. So you're going to be able to see three like skeletons or stick figures. The white one's him, and as he transitions, you'll see him transition between the red and the green, which you can see are these two tracks here. And the first one will stop where the track stops, and the other one will keep going. But if you look, his feet are actually sliding forward, right? So I think I'm going to take this track and I'm going to push it back a little bit. You can see how everything kind of moves with it. There we go. Let me hide some of that garbage there. It's kind of confusing sometimes. Yeah, look at that. It's even better. It's now, in fact, I think I might push it back just a hair, like he's actually getting knocked back a little bit. Yeah, maybe a little bit more. Oh, too much. There we go. Oh, I got something selected in the scene. Let me clear my selection. There we go. Right now I have a linear blend going between these two animations. That you can see that straight line, but I can ease this in and ease it out. Like, again, it's 12 principles of animation, right? I know it's motion capture, and to a lot of people, motion capture is the devil's rotoscope. But hey, guess what? Even Disney rotoscopes all their most iconic movies of all time. Let's see, post control, see properties, fade in and out. Just about everything inside this program has a property that you can get to and access. So smooth and smooth. There we go. And when I come back here, you can see that the little cross in here is no longer linear. It actually kind of eases in and eases out. So there we go. He's dead. When I'm done, I'm happy. What I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll just plot to skeleton and plot to control rig. And I would call that, for now, animation done. Now here's a tip. If you're like, I can't animate my character, grabbing his hand and I'm moving around, but nothing's happening, check your story. Is if you see this blue here, story's on, and you'll want to turn it off. Hey, Tough Going, how's it going? Yeah, that's true. It's really difficult to do a realistic motion without motion capture. Um, and whenever we do, like where I work, whenever we do a hand keyed animation as well, we have to try to mimic actual motion the best we, or natural motion the best we can. So does this, is this controlled, or does it have the ability to randomize? If you're talking about procedural animation, which is kind of like you know, a thing, and I always thought it was like the future of like creating video games. I'll just let this guy die over and over again while I talk. If you're talking about that, then definitely there are options to do procedural animation. Inside a Motionbuilder, probably not so much. It's pretty much you can either hand key or you can edit motion via what you just saw me do here. Let's go do another one. Let me delete this story. This is done. I've discovered just delete the track. Your animation's still there because you baked it down. So that was that one. So let me give a pro tip and pro tip is organization. So if you hop over to your navigator, you have takes. And if let me expand this real fast, so you can see what I'm talking about. Inside here is a bunch of takes. These are what we're looking at. I'm going to go and I'm going to create a new track. No, I do not want to copy the animation over. I'll take that track and I'll rename it a bunch of dashes. Da, 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 da. Or you can even put a name in here, something like new. And I like to drag my spacer up at the top. That way, when I grab that animation, which was it head front that yeah, it's head front that I animated. I can drag this and I can just pop that over there. And it's a really easy way for us to like keep track of what we've been working on and what still needs to be worked on. So this would say I've got one animation down and I got a whole bunch more to go. Um, let's look at these impacts real fast. Now you can see nothing's happening. He's just laying on the floor. Why is he laying on the floor? Well, if I turn on, where is he? There he is. If I turn this on, you can see there's the mocap. Let me try this one. And one more. Yeah, this is the one I want. Haha, this is a good one. And he's doing that little twitchy thing. So what that tells me is his hips, which are right here, F curves, have gimbal on it. You can see how the curves are like jetting down like that. So filters, gimbal killer, preview, accept. You can see it's fixed all that. So I've got a funny story behind this too, by the way. Fingers, yes. I agree. I really hate the way some people do fingers. I am very particular about my fingers. Um, this guy, we actually captured fingers. You can see he's got little fingers there. So you'll see his fingers moving when he's animating. Let me transition over to me. Hello, guys. So doing finger animation. So my hand, my fingers aren't on a straight plane. My fingers are actually angled in towards the palm. So whenever I start to curl my fingers like this, you can see they're all kind of pointing towards a singular point, like right here somewhere. So when you come in, they kind of close and they just kind of angle in. And a lot of animators in CG don't understand that you need to do that when you're posing your hands. So what will happen is the fingers will look kind of like separated like that, like kind of like what you're talking about, very, very false. Um, like if I try to grab something, you can see how the fingers are angled, like so, uh, and not. I can't do it without breaking my fingers. They're not coming down like this. So that's something you definitely have to be aware of whenever you want to do really, really good motion editing or animation of any sort on any sort of character. So if I grab this glass of water, uh, another thing is grouping. Like these fingers are always going to be grouped together, usually. And then fingers tend to group together. It's the way the tendons and ligaments work in your hand. And the ring finger is actually the weakest because it's actually controlled a lot by the middle and the pinky. So if you've ever done that old thing when you're a kid where you put your hand down on a desk like this, and you say lift this, it's like 5 pounds, and lift your middle finger, it's like 20 pounds. It's like, oh, it's hard to lift. And lift your pinky, it's like whatever, however much weight. And then now lift your ring finger. It only weighs an ounce, and you're like, I can't lift my ring finger. Go ahead. I bet you're all trying this right now. I can't lift my ring finger. Ugh. And it has to do with the way that these tendons are, just the way they work. So these fingers tend to group together. That's why a lot of uh, that's why a lot of games back in the day when we had polygon limits and joint limits would have mitten hands that look like this. Also, if you ever watch any Pixar movie, any Disney movie, that's how they group. And out of these fingers that group together, the middle and the ring finger tend to group themselves together, which is why you get a lot of Spider-Man poses like Spider-Man, you know. So that's something we always have to think about. Again, just if you want to have a really strong pose, I'm very big on posing characters. If you want a really strong pose, you want to that's something to think about. Get those fingers looking good. So, let's see, making sure I answering you guys' questions. All right, so for those of you just joining us, just talked about fingers. And why is this animation working, but the guy's not on it? Well, he's not reading it. So I'm going to go to the navigator. I'm going to go find my character, and I'm going to say character. And now he's being driven by the motion capture. This is what we call retargeting. And retargeting is just a way of taking data from one character, one skeleton, and putting it on another. So funny story. You guys want a funny story? So here's the funny story. Oh, see, Fair Pixar, Disney mostly cheat by giving characters only four. Yes, yes, they do. They only give them four fingers. I'll tell you why. Because it's a heck of a lot easier and faster to animate four fingers than it is to animate all five. You're absolutely right there. And it definitely is a cheat. So funny story. We went on stage, and we shot this animation, and I'm like, how are we going to do this? So what I did was, where's my cursor? There we go. So what we did was I talked to the animator, and the animator like, or not the animator. I'm sorry. I talked to the actor, and the actor's like, hold on, I got an idea. So we put a harness on him, and we strapped him up, and we got a rope tied to his back as like a jerk vest. And then we had this mat laying on the ground that he was falling onto. And then what I did is I stood behind him on the other side of the mat, and my job was to pull him as hard as I could. And those three impacts you saw, 1, 2, and 3. This is like the heaviest one. We said, all right, go. And I took it and I go, and I pulled it and I yanked it and he flew back and he hits you. Know, it looked good. It's kind of like for an impact, it was kind of a light impact, like maybe a grenade went off a few feet in front of him, causing him to fly back. And I said, oh, let's do it again. All right, cool. I'm like, this time, just kind of empty your mind and close your eyes. I want it to be a surprise. So I took it. And he's like, yeah, cool. And I yanked it back, and he flew back again. And this time he hit harder. He's like, whoa. Yeah. And he gets up and he's like, oh man, that's good. I'm like, let's try it one more time. So I came up and I got behind him and I yanked as hard as I possibly could. And this is what we got. He flies back and his feet practically hit the mat behind him. He comes down and he gets up. I was like, dude, are you okay? And he's just kind of like walking over and he's kind of like, oh man, yeah, I'm good. I think I just ate my own dick. I'm just like, oh gosh. Oh man. That was funny. Good times. He was a young kid. He's like, super fit and what have you. So anyways, so there we go. Impact. So how do I make this feel impacty, more impacty? You can see already just the fact that the way we shot it, there's no anticipation from his part, but that front part is very slow. Like we need to punch it up a little bit. So let's see here. Boom. Let's go ahead and plot that down. Plot the skeleton. Plot to control rig. There we go. And you can see he actually starts on the ground here. Yeah. There you go. His feet are on the ground. And then he gets thrown back. He goes flying through the air and he hits, boom, right on the mat. He actually presses the mat in. It's, pretty far. And then when he comes back, you can see the upper half of his body is obviously heavier than like his hips or his legs. So he sunk down into the mat a little bit more. And his feet are obviously up in the air because his feet are on the mat, right? So we gotta make this. We gotta make him hit the ground, right? So let's figure this out. So first thing I want to do is I definitely want to cut off the beginning of this. I want him to start right where he's getting ready to be shot, maybe or blown up, maybe right about there. So I'm going to crop off the front of that 14 frames and go to the end. Boom. That looks good. That's my first pass. Make skeleton, control rig, make control rig. All right. So now the first pass is done. I'm going to go ahead and hide that mocap because I don't need it. Now I'm going to do some actual editing. The first one was like all done in story, and I was able to like easily, you know, make it work. Just a few little quick edits. So I'm going to take him and I'm going to create an offset pose. And my offset pose is going to be right about here. I'm just going to be a full body pose. So I'm going to select a body part and I'm going to set a pose. Boom, set a pose. You can see a key showed up here. He's going to fly back, and when he hits the ground, I feel like he's not hitting the ground quite enough. So I'm going to take him here and I'm going to push him down into the ground like that. Oh, is it on me? Hey, thank you. There we go. There we go. You know what? I made a mistake earlier. I used the number 1 on my number pad for my transition hotkey, and I keep forgetting that it's there. So I'll type in the number 1 into a value somewhere, and I'll totally screw myself over and transition over to myself. All right. So anyway, okay. So where was I? Oh yeah. So I set a key right there. Boom. And I come in over here. I'll delete that key and I'll redo it to where he's hitting the ground, which is right about here. I'm gonna sink him down into the ground. Full body key. And he's going to roll back here, but now as you can see his back is kind of like into the ground again. So I'm going to roll him up onto his armor because he got some armor there. It's not going to penetrate the ground per se. I'm just going to kind of go along this and kind of like adjust him along the way. Let's pull that down. Sink spit into his shoulders, pull him up. Oh, and that's where he hits, right there. So that's where he needs to come down and rotate. Because he ends up at that awkward angle, right? So it's boom, and then he slides forward. And we want to get rid of some of that slide forward. So when he hits the mat, it actually stretched the mat back, and then he goes sliding forward. Yeah, we do. So in games, we have something called Ragdoll, and typically, what would happen is the animation would play, and it get to a certain point, and the animation would cut, and it would transition into a ragdoll physics, and then they would kind of like ragdoll. Uh, that's good because it gives that kind of like, you know, visceral experience of you know, seeing this fun physics because physics are fun, right? Uh, Unfortunately, sometimes games can have too many physics in it. See the ragdolls randomization I was asking about. Oh yeah, okay, yes, okay. I'm sorry. Misunderstood your question there. Yes, there is ragdoll in here, and I can actually turn it on. It's a bit of a setup. I wasn't really prepared to turn on ragdoll because there's a whole setup process to make ragdoll work on these characters. But yeah, it can hit, and I can activate ragdoll, and then ragdoll would take over and cause the character to feel more like actual a doll, like a ragdoll hitting the ground. And so, like I was saying, in a game, you can only have so much. There's only so many calculations your processor can do at a time. So a lot of times you'll have an animation that completes all the way to the ground, and that's to fill the gap. So if we didn't have that animation that goes all the way to the ground, what would happen is you get guys would be flying through the air, and they because you kill them, they'd hit here and they just freeze and nothing would happen, and they just kind of like stay that way in a game until uh, they dissolve away, or they're destroyed, or however that works out. They're despawned. So a lot of times, what will happen is we'll take one animation, let's say like this one, and we'll make it hit and go all the way to the ground. And right here is where he's going to slide forward. Because the way he bounced. I don't want that, so I'm going to push him back. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. And you can play with these keys, make them feel better. You can actually see his arms because he's sinking down into the cushion of this mat. You can actually see his arms like up at this angle. So when I'm ready, I'll do a pass where I take his arms and I'll just rotate his arms down like this so that they're hitting the ground as well. But I don't think I want to do it in this pass. I think I want to do it in another pass down the road here. Make him really feel like he's laying on the ground. He does have a lot of bounce, doesn't he? We're going to have to get rid of all that bounce in him. A lot of back and forth. That's easy enough to do. Make his feet touch the ground. Yeah, you got to do that. So I think I'm done with this pass for now, my quick edit. So let's plot this down. Now I'm ready for the next pass. What will I do? I think I'm going to get rid of the bounce actually. And I will do that through the F-curve editor. And I will do that with his hips. And I think I'll try it with his hips first. I might have to turn IK on for his chest as well. So I think I want to get the bounce out before I adjust the arms to make the arms feel like they're hitting the ground. So let's go to translation. Oh, I'm in an animation layer. I gotta go to base animation layer. All right, here we go. So you can kind of see how he's hitting and bouncing. Up and down and back and forth. Back and forth is on the Z, I believe. Let me check. Oh, that's left and right. It's on the X. Back and forth is on the X. Yep, there it is. This is why I like working in 2 monitors, because I can put all my tools on 1 monitor and just work. But I want you all to see what I'm doing. There we go. So here you can see where he's going back and forth. So I'm going to tone that down. That's out, and that's back in, back out, back in. All right, so I'm just gonna grab these here, scale these down, so it's less of a bump, or less of a whatever, back and forth. It's okay to have a little. Yeah, you can see he's kind of sticking now. Yeah, it definitely sticks a little bit better now. So I think what I'll do is I'll give it a little bit of a smooth. So I'll go to the filters, select just those keys, find the smooth. I turn off use quaternions. I want to change my width to 2 since I'm at 30 frames a second, and I'm going to hit preview. You can see it kind of changed those curves right there. Let me reset that. I'll do it one more time. You can see it right in here when I hit preview. Boom, you can see it change. And if I like it, you can hit accept. The reason why I want to use a small value is if you use a larger value, you can actually start destroying the curve. It's better. Yeah, there he goes. He's getting himself killed. Told you not to go into that room, but you didn't listen. Got yourself blowed up. So what I'm doing right here, I know you're like, what is he doing? He's just watching this thing over and over again. Yeah, that's what you do, right? You sit there and you watch your animation over and over and over again, and you look at how the curves, how he's moving. Is there a hitch? Does it feel smooth? I think what I want to do is I want to I think I'm done with this pass. I'm going to plot this down. I'm going to see about turning on the IK for his chest. So let me go turn that on. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing here with the Y up and down movement. Let's see what he's doing. So he's coming down, he's hitting, there's kind of a bounce, which is fine. Then it's just a little bit much here. I think I want to take this, I want to smooth this out or flatten this a little bit. Pull that down. So now you can see that his chest is it's a little bit, feels a little bit like he's sticking to the ground a little bit more. That's pretty cool. New Frame Plus, is it? Yeah, I'll have to check that out. So yeah, so I got IK now controlling his chest, helping him stick a little bit better. Maybe I'll flatten out the back and forth motion a little bit as well. I don't know if I like that. I'm gonna do that. Yeah, I believe you have to experiment. You have to experiment and play. If something doesn't work, you try something else. All right, so I think we're on to the arms. Arms are next. Go back to an animation layer. Pull this down so I can make that bigger. So he's going to come back and he hits. And right there is where he hits the ground. So I'm going to go to body part mode because I'm going to control these arms a little bit individually. See, and then he hits right here. Right there is where he hits. Boom. Maybe his shoulder even comes back. Yeah, just like that. So he comes down and whack. Oh yeah, look at that. His arm's like extending straight out to the ground, like whack. Like the back of his hand is hitting the ground. Whack. Yeah. And then I'll set another key here. And then when he falls back there, I'll rotate this kind of down and back like that. Oh, there we go. And then set a key here. And then I think I'm going to go zero this out. So I'm going to hit a zero key. This puts me back to the original motion capture. So if I come down here, you can see these curves. The 0 is what the original base layer is. All these keys here are animation offsets. And then back over here is back to 0 or a 0 key. Same with rotation. It's doing the same thing. So these are all offsets. So I've offset his arm on those X, Y, and Z rotations to be hitting the ground. Smack, comes down, and then back up here. But that's when I add a new offset. You can see it adjusted that to the new setting. Let's look how that arm looks. It's almost there. Let's grab that shoulder again because I don't know if I like how it picks up right there. I think I like it to stick. So I find the apex of it coming up, which is right here. Rotate that back. It kind of dips down right there, so I'm going to raise it the other way. I'm just kind of offsetting the animations. So when I did these animations back in the day for the game I was working on, I had a task. We shot about 200 some odd motions, and I had a task of getting those done, and I only had 2 weeks to do them in. So I had to do 200 animations in 2 weeks, which could only have been done using motion capture. I want to say I averaged about 10 to 15 animations a day on the mid range. On the high range, I actually did about 25 animations in a single day. I think that was like my max number ever I did while I was working on this in particular project. On the low end, I did like 4 or 5 animations a day. This would have been a 4 or 5 animations a day one, where I would actually spend several hours, which I'm not going to do here, but I would spend several hours working on just one animation to make it feel, good. By the way, if you ever want to see my animation, my demo reel, you go to my YouTube page, which is linked below on my channel, and you just click on it. You can go to like my 2009 demo reel, my 2000 whatever 12 demo reel, and I have one for 2015, and you'll probably see some of these animations in there. I'll let you try to find them, see if you can spot them. But yeah, I think what I would do is I would continue to try to get some of this this kind of jiggle and wiggle out of the hips. As he falls backwards. I think I'd keep working on it. Yeah, definitely. I'd also need to take his foot and make his foot come down and hit the ground. It'd be the same process, right? So I'd find where I want to start my offset, set a key, and then come down to where I want it to hit the ground, which is like right there. And I'm going to push his foot all the way down. Now notice how his foot is like actually hitting and conforming to the floor is because I have floor contacts on. So I'm going to set a key there. So as he comes down, it's going to stomp. Boom. And then settle right here. Put that back down. There we go. So he's going to come down and bam. Shoop. And bam. And if you have never worked with an animator, we like to make lots of little sound effects with our mouths as we as we animate. A lot of times we don't have any audio as we're animating, unless we're like doing VO work. So we have like YouTube on or Netflix or music or something to listen to while we work. What do you guys think? Should I put like some music on in the background in future episodes of me doing my stuff? That'd be good. I On Sundays, by the way, I sculpt. Like if you look, I've got I did my first sculpting video last Sunday that you guys can check out, where I just kind of like doing an anatomy study, uh, and I have some music going on in the background. But I've talked to a buddy of mine who's in a band, and he's gonna let me use some of his music, which I think is pretty awesome. And in return, I'll plug whatever he wants me to plug. He was in a pretty well-known band back in the 90s. Had his 15 minutes of fame. Now he's in a new band that he's a couple. He's yeah, new band that he started. But I don't want to say anything until like it's for certain. But yeah, I will give you a hint though. I got him a job on one of the games I worked at, and they did some of the music in one of the games I worked on, which is cool. I always like helping people out if I can. Makes me feel good. I know what it's like to need help. So I try to help people out where I can. Yeah, so now his feet are hitting the ground. His arm, at least that arm's hitting the ground. This arm's still up in the air. Oh, what did I forget to do? I forgot to turn off the pick the mesh. There we go. Let's grab that shoulder. Let's fix that arm. So I didn't want to key this arm at the same time I keyed the right arm. So I didn't want those keys to get confusing. So he kind of comes down and boom, I think he hits right there. So I think this is going to be my 0 key. Come in and he hits right here. Zoom in on this. Sometimes textures get confusing on a character, and you can like toggle through like where is it? All right, I'm gonna confess right here. At work, I use Motionbuilder 2018, and to do these Twitch streams, I just downloaded 2019, and they have switched some of the hotkeys on me between 2018 to 2019, so it's not working. There it goes. I found it. I found the hotkey. So a lot of times we'll animate like that. There we go. That'll work. So let's grab that arm. Boom. Right here. That's where his elbow hits the ground. Bring that shoulder down a little bit. And the elbow hit. Same process as the other arm. Don't want his hand to go through the floor, so I'll bring her back up. So pro tip, if you're using Motionbuilder, if you if you left click to move something around, it's like big motions. If you right click to move it around, so left click big motions, right click, it's much, you can do larger mouse movements, but the rotation is less. It's more of an incremental or smaller. It's really helpful. We use it a lot. When we discovered it, we're like, oh man, we're using that all the time. So, all right. So we got his arm down there. So he's going to come down. He's going to, bam, he hits his elbow. Whew. Hand hits the floor. And then he comes back down there, but his hand's going under the ground. So I don't like that. So I'm going to zero that out. Actually, it's not too different from the underlying mocap. So I think I'm going to reposition his arm like this, and I'll probably play with his fingers eventually. So he comes down, wham, hits, and then settles like that. Bam. All right, so see how it feels. Oh, then his hand goes under the ground. Oh no. So here, I'm going to go back to floor contacts, which I talked about a little bit earlier in this thing. So they've got some floor contacts right here for hands and feet. I'm gonna see what it's like to turn on floor contact right there. I'm gonna see if it helps that hand from going underneath the ground like that. So let's go do that. I head over to my navigator, select my character. I'm gonna head down to under character settings, hand floor contact, and turn that on. You can see it kind of started to adjust his hand. It'll prevent his hand from going through the floor, but it only prevents his hand going through the floor pending where the floor contacts are, which are these little boxes next to his hand, which when I set him up, I actually didn't set this up. So let me, if I pull this in, it'll see, how can I describe this? Think of it, it's an invisible plate on his hand that will not go through the floor. So the wider it is, this will happen. Or where? There, that will happen. Then the more narrow it is, the more you can fine tune and get his hand to make contact with the ground. But I don't know. I don't know if that's working so good. So I'm just going to turn that off. That was my experiment. So I experimented and it did not work. So I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to scrub my animation to right there. I'm going to curve his hand up and lift his hand above the floor. His elbow is a bit under the floor. So what I can do is I can turn off my unpin and turn on my pin. So grab his elbow and I can just grab his elbow and pull it up a little bit. Elbow and hand. So there we go. Set that key and bam, wham. Kind of getting that sponge out. So for some of you, because it looks like I had a whole bunch of viewers who've hopped on. If I didn't see you hop on, I apologize. I'm concentrating here on this stuff. It's just how I work. What's going on here is this is some raw mocap I shot way back in the day, and this guy landed on a mat, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to take out some of that sponginess of the mat to give the illusion of him actually hitting the floor, because we're not going to really knock an actor down, not even a stunt actor, onto hard concrete if we don't have to. So bam, he hits the ground. His arm's still kind of like in that up position when he finally grab the, here we go. So he hits. Let's pick out his home pose. Sometimes it's good to start from the back and work forward. So here's the pose that he's going to end up in. Let's figure this out. Let's unpin his hand. I kind of like the idea of his arm kind of being rotated and curling up like that. Or even better, maybe his hand goes down this way and the tendons in his arm are a little bit tight because he's kind of like a big, heavy dude, right? Kind of strong. So maybe the tendons and ligaments aren't allowing his arm to fully extend. So maybe that's a good pose for him. Let me see if I can. There we go. Get an idea of this guy. Yeah, I think I like that. I think I like that a little bit more. So let's set that key there. Hits. I'm going to zero this out here. That means I'm taking it down to the base layer of how it was originally shot. And then I'm going to adjust it from there. That's another thing I like about Motionbuilder's control rig is like, look how I was able to just go from an an FK, I'm rotating the elbow to quickly to an IK where I'm controlling it from the elbow and hitting the ground right there. I mean, I've used a lot of control rigs, and there's some really good ones out there, but I'm going to have to say Motionbuilder is probably one of my favorite control rigs. It's one of the best, in my opinion. Let's move that arm up. Here I'm taking some liberties on what's happening with this motion. And not the greatest, but we'll go with it for now. Yeah, it looks like he's reaching back there. My experiment didn't work out so good. But I bet I can do this and save it. Shump. Boom, I like that. I don't like that. Or really that. That's okay. Not too sure about that. And I think I like that. So I'm going to delete these keys and see what happens, how to naturally. Yeah, and I think I have to paste that here. No, don't like it. I'm just going to delete those keys. It happens. Boom. And I'm just gonna have it stick out there sometimes. So the trick for motion capture is you want to work with the motion capture. You don't want to work against the motion capture. The second you start working against the motion capture, you have to rethink what you're doing or go reshoot motion capture for whatever it is you're trying to edit. I'm just gonna put that down to the ground. Oh, I got the floor contacts on, do I? No, no, it's off. Floor contacts are off. Oh, I've got the elbow selected. That's why it's not going down. So bring that down. There we go. Pull that up. There we go. So boom, he gets shot and gets knocked to the ground. All right, so something else I want to talk about is timing, because this is all like natural human timing and motion. So the front is very slow. Like you're expecting that explosion to be a lot faster and hit him a lot harder. So let me plot this down. By the way, normally I would probably take the time and animate his fingers and kind of get that, really nice curled hand. Or is it F? Fingers. Oh, wrong hand. Here we go. Just kind of get those fingers looking nice as well. But then I would go in and I'd start doing timing. And for timing this, I think I want to look at the overall speed of the motion before I go in and fix the front of the motion. Because if I just fix the front and then fix the overall speed, I feel like there's going to be a weird disconnect. The front has to be so fast that the front end has to be so fast that yeah, I have to think about it as a whole. Oh yeah, the actor. Yeah, obviously. I didn't even think about looking at the head. That's actually a really good call. Let's look at his head. Boom. Yeah, I think I would probably emphasize this head hitting too. Like he comes down and that would be my 0 key, and then that would be my snap back key, where it snaps back. Then that would be my bounce key, which would I just 0 that out. You can see it where he re-hits right there. kind of curls up a little bit, and then kind of. He's got this big thing on his back. It's kind of it's kind of tough to get his head to follow the ground how I'd expect it to follow. But yeah, his head hit the crash mat, obviously, so protect his head. So you're going to have some bounce there. So let's look at how that snap looks now that we've adjusted the head. Whoa, ouch. Bam. All right, it's a bit much. So this is going to be a great example of IK versus FK and how it works together. So I'm going to go to rotation, and we're going to look at this. There we go. So we're rotating on the Z. Here's the curves where he hits, and it's like wham. Now I think this is too much. It's like whack, and then that bounce right there is too much, I think. And I'm going to try to move this curve down. And you're like, hey, nothing's happening. Why isn't anything happening? It's because I have IK selected, which is this. If I wanted to do it with via FK, I would have to actually select his head itself and then go do it to the FK curves, because there are two separate sets of curves for various parts of the control rig. So there I can control this. But the problem with just controlling the head here is it's not procedurally rotating the neck as well. Like when I rotate the head, let me see if I can. Oh, why am I not seeing the control rig? Let me turn this off and back on. There we go. Sometimes if you're like, why can't I see it? I'm trying to unhide it. If you go up and you kind of tickle it, kind of turn things off and back on, they'll all of a sudden reappear. So I don't know if you can see this too well. He's got a neck joint in here, right? So when he rotates his head, it's procedurally kind of rotating that neck joint as well. If I go into the FK and try rotating his head, you can see it's just rotating his head, not the neck. So that is why I'm kind of pointing this out, because what I want to do is I want to grab his head, IK, which is the red sphere right there. I'm going to turn it on. So I'm going to turn on rotate. You can see it's turned green. So rotate is now 100% on. Now if I go and select his head and go to my curves, if I rotate it, it's going to rotate it, but it's also going to procedurally drive his neck as well. So that bounce is a bit much, is a bit violent. I'm going to tone that by like half and see what it looks like. So as he falls back, and yeah, it's a lot better. Still like, wow, is that a neck snap? I think I need to start the zero key a little bit sooner. Yeah, it's better. It's amazing what one frame can do. And when it comes to timing your animation, like all I did was move this one frame. Like I had this right here, and that was just too much. But coming out here and just moving it out one frame, so much nicer. Now it really feels like his head's hitting the pavement, kind of like Marty McFly when he gets hit by maybe his granddad. Hit him with the car. His head kind of like hits the concrete and bounces. All right, so back to timing. I'm just going to go ahead and save because, I've been working on this and I'm like, you know what? I'd hate to lose everything in the middle of a stream. so there you go. Everything's saved. At least if I save and things crash, I can kind of pick up close to where I left off. Ouch, God. Man, just adding that head. That was a good call. That was a good call. All right, so timing. So overall timing. So I want to kind of back on the subject. I'm gonna do the overall time. There's lots of ways you can do overall timing or time things. You can come in here into story. I can create a layer. You could put the character in, switch it over from loop to time compression, which is right here, and compress it down. Or I could go into F curves editor, and I can select the whole control rig like so, and on the base animation layer, which is where all the curves are, select all my curves, which looks like this. And you can't see it. Let me expand this. I could pop all these over here into time warp and compress it that way. But there's a way I like to compress time a little bit more, um, and I like to do it through the timeline for something like this. But I want to do it. There's a very particular way you have to do that. So when you compress your time, uh, one, you don't have to select everything when you do it through the time. You can just go full body mode, select a single node, and do it. In fact, I'm gonna just be on the safe side. I'm gonna plot back and forth to my skeleton into my control rig one more time. Um, so the way you do it is over here you have snap settings, and right now I've got it snap on frame, so everything's kind of snapping on the frame. But if I say no snap, that turns on incremental frames, and right here I'm on frame 49, as you can see that. So as I start to scrub, you'll see this number right next to it change. You can see it's scrubbing between frames, so frame 56 between frame 49 and 50. And by doing this, I'm not going to ruin or destroy any of the keys that I've set. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select all my keys. Excuse me. Give me a drink of water here. So I'm going to grab all my keys. Now in Motionbuilder, I can show you probably more easily here. Maybe if I move the timing here, it's actually going to shift all my keys as a whole, one way or the other. If I select it back here on the back end, or let me reselect that, it will either expand or compress my keys in whichever way I end up typing it out. And you can do the same thing right up here, even though I know it's really close to the edge of the screen, it might be hard to see. There's a little number up here, 101. I'm going to double click on that, and shoot, let me think. What would be a good value to put this at? Maybe 90? Let's try 90. So what it's done is it's actually compressed all my keys. You can see it hasn't accidentally written. If I didn't have it to no snap, if I had it on one of the other settings, keys would have overwritten other keys, and you would have lost your animation. But because I have on no snap, it just compresses into those incremental frames. So that's set to 90. I compress it by whatever percentage that is. And you can see it's a lot faster now. And the key to getting like this type of animation into game is you want to go right up to the point where it's too fast and then back off just a hair. Or like we like to call it Benny Hill speed, if any of you are old enough to remember the old Benny Hill show. So let's try 85 and compress it down to 85. So yeah, definitely a lot faster now as he flies back and kind of hits the ground. Boom. Ouch. Really looks like it hurts. I'm going to say this is almost too fast for what I'm looking for. I think I'm going to get back up to 90. Again, because I typed on this end value field right here, this box, it's either expanding or contracting the selection. Yeah, I think 90 feels a little bit better. If I remember correctly, you can actually grab it and drag it, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of like dragging it back and forth to kind of like fine tune however I want it. But it's going to leave it on an incremental frame. Like right now it's on whatever, 88. You see that little star? I don't know if you can see it. There's a little star right by it. That star indicates that it's an incremental frame. And in fact, if I go to my navigator and if I double click on takes, you can see each take has a number next to it for local start and local stop and duration. So I can say it starts at an incremental frame of -0 and ends at an incremental frame beyond 54. Technically, it's 54 frames long. So slow motion mechanics. So the thing about slow motion mechanics in games are, one, you have to think about game compression. That's a thing. And the more compressed an animation is, the more jittery it looks. In fact, if you go into a video game and you look really closely at the feet of like a buddy, a lot of times you'll see like this kind of like jitteriness to it as they ambiently idle or do something. And that has to do with the way that animation has to be compressed. But in a video game, because the way it handles curves just like animation. It's not like a movie, right? Where, yeah, if you got 30 frames a second, if you slow it down, it starts to become choppy. Game At will actually handle the animation like this editor will handle an animation. So let me head back over to grabbing this. So it's fast, right? In fact, hold on. Let me trim this down to frame. What frame did we say this ended on? 88. Let me select that. I'm gonna pump that back to 90 where we had it because I liked it there. There we go. So if we wanted to go slow-mo, like Matrix bullet time, right? You can actually slow it down. I'm going to slow it down to, let's do half speed. So he gets hit and it's like, you, boom. Or even slower, 0.25. So there. So yeah, so what I'm doing here is exactly how a game engine would handle the animation. It just goes, you're a curve, your keys, your curves. I'm just going to play you slower. But again, going back to compression, let's say it's a highly compressed animation with a lot of jitter on it during this animation for whatever reason, and you start to play it slow, you'll see in slow motion the jitter in the feet and the arms and everything because it's kind of amplified at that point. That's right, it does it automatically. Now let me go back to 1 speed. There we go. Real time. All right, so I've almost got it. So I showed you one way to adjust timing. So I grabbed the overall length of the animation. I speeded it up to make it feel a little more, punchy, a little bit quicker. I don't think we're really getting the full effect of this blast, though, that's in front of him. So we need to, I think what we need to do is actually extend how far he flies. So let's try that. So I'm going to hop over to my animation layer. I'll show you how we do that. So he's going to get hit, boom, and probably right here, I'm going to set a key, full body, and then I think I'm going to go to right about where he stops, which should be right about here. That would be, if he goes flying back and skids across the ground, that's kind of where he would stop, right? So I'm going to turn off all my pinning. See, if I didn't turn off my pinning, I try to move him. See, his feet are pinned. So what I'm going to do, turn off my pinning, which kind of temporarily disables the pinning of the feet. I'm going to slide him back to, let's say, right there and set a key. So now you can see he's kind of flying back farther and sliding a little bit. But I think I want him to keep sliding, so I'm going to drag that key this way, which you're like, I didn't see anything happen, but you see he's actually like sliding on the ground now, and then he stops. It's kind of an abrupt stop to the slide. I think I'm gonna extend that key out a little bit more. Yeah, I think he's gonna slide to the apex of that, which is right about here. Oh, I have no snap still turned on. I'm gonna go back to snap on frames. Otherwise, I'm gonna start putting things on incremental frames accidentally. Boom, and he slides. Now, this is just how far I pushed him in my initial pass, but I'm going to turn off his eye on his chest. I'm going to turn it off on his head. Since I baked all this down, I'm going to turn it off on his feet. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to control how far he goes with his hips, the curve on his hips. And you'll see that here in a second. So he's flying in this direction. From here to here. I want this to be an abrupt start. Right now he's easing into the distance that he travels. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to flatten that out. Now I want to point something out here. These are like, what people seem to like to use. I don't like to use these keys like this. If you right click in here, you can go to classic mode. Classic mode actually has names of those buttons and you're like, oh, so that's smooth curve and that's, stepped or TCB or whatever. But it also opens up this ghosting function. This is really cool. So first thing I want to do is obviously, I'll show you this ghosting function. Yeah, I think you'll like it. So I want to break that. What is this set to? Set to fixed. I need it to go to auto. There we go. So I'm going to take that line, that curve, and it's going to be an automatic. Just it gets thrown back. I think I actually want to start it a little bit sooner. So I'm just going to move that key that way. Maybe too much. I'll punch it forward a little bit. So now he's like flying back and hitting the ground and sliding. I want him to travel a little bit further. And I like the ease in. I like how he's hitting the ground and he's coming to a stop and not just abruptly stopping. If he was abruptly stopping, it would be a linear curve like this. And he just, and it kind of like, you can see him just kind of, stop. I don't like that. I'm gonna put that back to flat. And I can take this and I can extend it out. Because of the speed of the animation, the distance that you make him fly in this case is going to really add to the need. It's going to, how do I phrase this? You're going to have to be more careful about how you go about editing this, because you can overdo it and then it just looks silly and you're like, that makes no sense. So boom, flies, slides back, comes ease to a stop. If you want him to ease to a stop even more, I'll show you what you can do. And now I'm going to show you how to ghost something. And no, it's not like ghosting somebody on Tinder. Bad joke. You select the curve or curves that you want to ghost, and you say keep. And all of a sudden, swap and clear become active. So if I come in here and let's say I want to extend this out a little bit more. I want to play with the weighting of this curve. So if you click weight, it makes this handle active, and you can actually grab it and you can actually drag it in a direction. And if you see something else has just popped up, you can see the ghosted image of the other curve that you're animating with. So as he slides forward, he's like, whoop, and done. And he's getting more of an ease in at this point. I think I'll take this and I think I'll adjust this as well. So this might be too much. Let's come in like that, flatten that. I think I want to see him with this ease in. I think I want to see him slide a little bit more. Yeah, so open space. You're absolutely right. In fact, let me show you something that a game character would normally have. I haven't really shown this yet. Um, Down here, there's a joint, and this joint is called uh, it is called the movement joint. Every game has a different name for this joint. Some call it the origin, some call it the locator locomotion. Uh, One of my games called it the Pappy node. And think of this node as a point in space that drives your character. And your character is just window dressing in a game, right? Uh, when you push forward, what you're doing is you're taking that node and that you're driving this node forward or strafing or whatever, jumping, whatever. And the character who's window dressing is following that node, so to speak. Uh, and so what would happen is when I'm finished with this animation and I'm happy with how it looks, I would do a technical pass. And that technical pass, I would take that node and I would drive it with him in this direction. So there's a bounding box associated with that node, and that bounding box would be following him. So in the event that there's a wall or something that he could glide into, or a cliff that he can go off of, he would it would stop him from actually going through that wall. Or what some games would do is say hit detect ragdoll, and as soon as he hits that, that collision would detect that wall or that object or whatever, and immediately cause him to go into ragdoll. Some game engines, depending on the computation and all sorts of other technical stuff, it's over my head because I'm just an animator. Can't do a lot of physics or ragdoll for whatever reason. It's probably a limitation of that game. So they try to limit it. So that's why you might also have the guy die all the way to the ground versus die part way and then let ragdoll physics take over. So yes. And you know what? When I'm done with this, I got a couple more tricks that I'm going to show before it gets too late. I got about 30 more minutes here before I have to call the night because I got to go to work tomorrow and work on my project. So let's look at that. Let's look at that curve again. Erp. I think I want him to hit the ground here, and then I want him to slide, which he does. I want him to slide. I think I want this key to be a little more this way. Let's see how that works out. Because I want him to really slow into this fall. That's better. Oh yeah, Max Payne had only 3 death animations. No ragdoll. Yeah. Yeah, the good old days of old school console games with limitations. I'm working on Star Citizen right now, and it has got to be the most complex, heavy. You need a monster of a machine in order to play it. It's a, but it's, I mean, yeah, but Chris Roberts has always pushed the envelope, right? He's always been like the very best of the best of the best in all the games he's ever worked on. So you can only expect good things, I think. I think I want to push. So he hits, he slides. I like it. He's still sliding a little bit. I think I want to push this out a little bit more to here. Yeah, I think that works because I've taken the weight of that curve and like pulled it so far to the left. Yeah, the game's systemic. And we're working very hard on that to bring everything that you read online on our official forums, you know, make it all come to life. Booms, hit, slide, done. I wonder what happens if okay, okay, so now I've got this. I like it, but I'm going to swap back and forth between this and the other key. So this, hit, slide, I'm going to swap back. So that's the other one. So anyway, yeah, he just stops a little bit more abruptly in the first one. I think I like this one. We'll go with this one for now. When I'm done and I'm happy, I'm going to go skeleton plot to. So plotting means baking in other terminology. In fact, Motionbuilder or Autodesk, when they took over Motionbuilder, decided they didn't like the word plot because Motionbuilder came from it's Filmbox. That's what FBX for Motionbuilder. When you save out files, FBX stands for Filmbox. Kadara, I believe, was the original developer of this software. And Autodesk came and bought it, and they didn't like the word plot. They decided to try to change it to bake, so they called it bake, and then put plot whenever you go. plot still see it bake parentheses plot, but it would also they can't get rid of the plot. People would be like, what's this bake thing? What do you think we are, Maya, Max? All right, so we got this explosion happening. He's flying back. I think I want to make the beginning of this a little bit more punchy. I'm going to do this in story this time because I kind of want that more poppy, abrupt flyback. So he's going to boom, boom. There we go. Insert a character animation track, throw in a character, insert current take. There is my take. And I'm doing it this way for a couple of reasons. One, it's non-destructive if I don't like what I'm doing. It's easy just to delete this track and start over. So I got to figure out where the explosion is on this, and I'm going to say it's there. That's probably where the explosion is happening, just those few frames. I'm going to cut that right there. And I'm going to look at these. Boom, boom, boom. I want to compress that so that it works better. So if you remember I said how you grab the front or the end, like with this cut, I can move the front of this animation around and put it wherever I want to. If I double click here and hit 0, it'll put it at whatever number I put it at, it'll stick it. So 10 or whatever, 10. Throw it way back wherever. So anyways, I'm gonna, but if I grab this side, it's going to actually compress it in. But because I don't have scale selected, it's just going to crop that animation. It's not going to actually scale the time. I've got to go over here and activate this button right here, which is going to turn it to scale. And I can either do it by hand or I can do it, type it in. Right now, everything's snap-on frames. So we'll see how this works. Let's do it by 2 frames and just have it bump on right there. Let's see how that looks. So it's going to go scrub through this. It's a little bit faster. Let's try one more frame. Come on, let's grab it. There we go. That's like a one hit. The explosion happened right in front of him. Boom, boom. I don't know if, I mean, that's probably what would work for game. That's probably what they'd have us do. Make it like super fast. In fact, a lot of times blending and you having to be really responsive, you don't even start at whatever poses that he's being shot from, you would actually start the animation like right here. And so when the animation plays, there's a lerp or a blend that happens in game that will take you from whatever animation you're coming from to, in this instance, this death animation, and it would, blend. It blend. But I'm gonna expand this back out. I think I like it better with a couple of keys in here. Just, that's the way I like it. I like it the way it looks. So something else I'm going to do is while I'm in here, I might as well take the time. I'm going to grab everything. I'm going to slide frame everything to frame 0. Because if you remember, if you go back and rewatch this video, if you're just tuning in, I chopped off the beginning of this animation to make it feel a bit quicker and more punchy. So I'm going to frame start to end, and I'm going to plot to skeleton, plot to control rig. And if I'm happy, I'm going to delete that. I have left this open for something else. Something else I would like to show. So typically in games, we need to animate down the Z. And in this case, the Z is that way. It's that direction. He's actually flying off in the X, that direction. So I'm going to do this in story. This is the only way you can do it. And I think I want to show you why. I'm gonna do it the right way, and then I'll show you what happens if you do it the wrong way. So I'm gonna insert a current take. So this is what we just put down. I'm gonna select that. I'm gonna click that little eyeball there, which activates that track. Not only am I gonna get this straightened up, I'm going to or moved into place. I'm gonna get him straightened up so he flies straight back and not off at kind of this angle that he's flying off right now. So with this selected, I can come over here and I can just type in 0, 0, 0, and then I can rotate him around. And yeah, well, there you go, 0, 0, 0 on rotation as well. And now he's flying straight back on the Z. Boom. And that's a way that we get a lot of our animations to like line up and everything for like walking and stuff. Because we shoot on a mocap stage and we don't walk. We usually take the longest path we can manage, which is diagonal. So we shoot all these characters walking diagonally, and then we have to take them in post and we have to like straighten them up and get them to walk down in axes. Well, the ass injury. You know what? I don't know if I've seen the ass injury in Star Citizen. I bet if I see it, I'll know exactly what you're talking about. By the way, keep an eye out. We're getting ready to release 3.5. It's awesome. A lot of cool stuff. Can't say anything about it, but it's cool. Stay tuned. Okay, yes, I do know. I do know what you're talking about. Yeah, those reaction animations. Yes, I'm glad. Yeah, that refreshed my memory. I have been working on mission givers as of late, and so I do a lot of head nods and shoulder shrugs. And when it all goes into game, it looks really good. All right, so I think I'm happy with this. A lot of times I just sit here and I just stare at the animation. I'll get up and I'll go get a coffee and I'll come back and I'll look at the animation again, because a lot of times I'll pick up on things that I might have missed, like the head that we caught earlier, because I wasn't really paying much attention to it because I'm thinking about so many other things right now, talking to you all. I probably would have come back and I would have caught it. There's things that I'm looking at, like the chest right here, how it's kind of like bobbly, little spongy things. I definitely would spend more time on the front end, just fixing up that contact, that hard hitting of the ground. All right, so if I like it, I like it. All right, so I'm gonna not bore you guys too much. Plot to skeleton and plot back to control rig. And he's almost done, almost. I'm gonna get back to that one question that was asked earlier. And I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look at this this node here. It's called the movement node. This movement node has to move with him, and it's pretty simple. Uh, let's turn off story. I'm going to turn off story. I'm just going to delete this. It's always good to clean up story and delete, in my opinion. So I'm going to set a key here. And in fact, I'm going to go find that node, this node. I'm going to make it bigger. Skeleton node settings, again, everything has a property. I'm going to increase the size so you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to change the color. This is the one instance where I'll use a bright green for something. Usually I don't use it because when you select stuff, they turn green, right? And if it's already green, it's difficult to know that you've selected it. So I'm going to set a key there at frame 0. Go to the end frame and slide that back. A lot of games have very technical requirements on how this should follow a character. Really, it's up to engineering. And they'll tell you exactly how they want this node to follow. Sometimes they'll be like, I want it right under the hips the whole time. And in an instant like this, they may say, I want it right in the center of the body. Maybe because the bounding box is a certain size and it helps prevent the head from going through or something, from going through a wall. And you can see that this node is actually not following him precisely, and it's because it's got a curve on it. If I select the translation on this curve, you can see it eases in and eases out. So I want to take that, I'm just going to make it linear. Don't need anything fancy. And he stops right about here. So I'm going to grab those keys, and I'm just going to slide them, grab those keys and slide them that way. So now it's going to follow him a little bit better. Push that forward a little bit more. There we go. So let me explain about this node and how it's used in game. We're going to pretend this is like an animation that he's going to get up from, because he's tougher than he looks. So what's going to happen in game is he's going to play this explosion animation where he jumps and he flies back, and he's going to need to get up after this. So the way that a game will be able to say, where does the animation take place next in space, it uses that node and says its translation value is this, its rotation value is this, so the next animation that plays is going to line up exactly in the same location as that node. And if it's off, you'll see a pop-in animation, and he'll shift or rotate, or even if the pose is off, like if the next pose needs to match this pose in order for him to be able to get up. So that's why we have those nodes. And usually the animation on those nodes is linear. Like it's point A to point B. It really doesn't matter if it's easing in and easing out a lot of times. The reason why I try to keep it with him all the time, let's pretend he's walking and not just flying through the air. Let's say you're walking, you hit here, and the explosion happens. Well, guess what? He needs to break away from that animation in the middle of it and play the explosion animation of flying back. So that's kind of how that works. So I would say you know, if I had actually spent more time fixing that kind of impact of the landing, I would say this animation's done. And I would say it's pretty much game ready at this point. You would then take it through whatever platform you export from. For us, we go into Maya, and that's kind of where I've been for like ever since 2006. I want to say ever since I got a job at 3D Realms working on Duke Nukem Forever, which by the way, this is where this guy came from Duke Nukem Forever. Um, yeah, yeah, you'd take this animation, you'd save out in FBX, you'd go into Maya, you load a tool, the tool then processes this skeletal data that you export through an FBX onto your rig. Your rig usually has things like muscle joints and rotational joints, and I think I'll transition away from this for a sec and kind of talk to you guys a little more directly since I'm about at the end of my time here. I've got a couple more minutes, but because if you can't tell, I'm fading, I'm fading fast. So yeah, you export. It goes into Maya or Max or whatever program you happen to be using, and a lot of times there's rigging on top of that, things like muscles and rotational joints and just things that make your mesh to form really nicely. Like on the game I'm working on now, we have this very complex muscle system on our characters, and so this animation will drive the character inside of Maya at this point, which drives all the things that make it feel really nice. And then it spits out an animation to game that has all the muscle and rotational data, just everything baked down onto the skeleton. And then you see it in game. It looks really nice. There are things like Unreal has a really nice Fbx exporter now, so you can actually export from Motionbuilder directly into Unreal because it reads FBXs. Uh, I really wish I could use a system very similar to that, but the problem is again we have this really nice high-end muscles that have to flex and do things. Um, so there's that. But anyway, I hope you guys and gals enjoyed a little bit of this. It seems like I picked up a little bit of steam there at the end, and I appreciate all of you tuning in. And if you haven't had a chance to follow me, it'd be awesome if you could follow. It's going to help me so much become more of an affiliate with Twitch and be able to do and share more things with you all. And that's going to be really awesome. And if you appreciate, if you want to say thank you to me, why go down on my page and you'll see a link to some Jelly Belly jelly beans take you to an Amazon page. Just click on that and order yourself some jelly beans, and that will help me out as well. just a 2 pound bag. When I reach affiliate with Twitch and I can share more, I'm going to start sharing. I'm going to have a whole list of things of like tools that I use, not just what I do here with this setup of doing animation, but like behind me, I do a bunch of sculpting, and so Sundays I'll be sculpting characters or doing illustration and stuff like that, and I'll be sharing with all the tools that I use. That if you guys go, hey, I'm going to try that. What is that thing he's using? Go check it out and get yourself something cool, and it helps me out as well, and that's awesome, and I always appreciate help, and I look forward to sharing more with you guys in the future. Coming up in future episodes, next Wednesday I have my third tutorial. If you missed my first tutorial, go check it out. It's also on my YouTube page. This tutorial that I did earlier today will be up on YouTube. This little talk about editing motion will be up there at some point as well. But I'm going to be talking about motion capture prep. Like we didn't really cover it here, but there's a whole
there's a whole to do about getting motion capture prepped and ready for animation and do's and don'ts. In fact, there's a don't that I was supposed to show you guys now that I remembered what you aren't supposed to do when rotating a character. You want to see that real fast? I think I'll show you real fast. So you remember I rotated this guy to go down this axis? Well, let me show you what happens if you rotate a guy with just on an animation layer. Say, I don't want him to go that way. I want him to go that way. I'm just going to rotate him. And you rotate him and set your key. Anybody have a clue on what's going to happen if I hit play? Whoa, he goes that direction. He just goes sideways and all. He's completely messed up. So yes, there you go. That's why I rotated him in story instead of just rotating him and putting him in place. Translationally, you can like move them anywhere and set a key, and they'll be fine. But the second you need to rotate a character, you got to go into story, create a clip, and just take that thing as an element. It kind of creates it as turns it into an element, and you just rotate that whole element. But anyways, but yeah, I'm going to talk about motion capture. I'm going to talk about do's and don'ts, what to look for, what not to look for, or what to avoid. The difference between good solved data and bad solved data and that sort of stuff. I don't know how interesting it's going to be for some people, but I've had to deal with a lot of poorly delivered motion capture. It wasn't that it was shot bad or poorly acted. It's the person retargeting, solving and retargeting it to your character. If they do a great job, the data is wonderful to work with. If they just don't have a clue on how to do this, you just get really bad data, and then it's just a nightmare to work with. But anyways, thanks for joining me. I'll be back on Sunday, 8:30, just sculpting and just hanging out and see if anybody joins in. And I will catch you all next time.
All right.